Hello everyone, so in today's video we're going to read a book called Rikki, Tikki, Tavi. Okay, so it's from the Jungle Book. Yeah, from the Jungle Book. So if you do not know what does the Jungle Book mean, then the Jungle Book is an awesome book. It's like a boy who's been like eaten by a tiger, but the tiger cannot eat him because the boy ran away. So the wolf pack and the bear teach him and kind of like protect him and like giving him food and stuff so he can grow up. Yeah, so one time the boy um he's like been when he's been growing up a little bit, he got kidnapped. Not He got kidnapped by the monkey. Yes, and he and the monkey have been playing together. So the monkey said, "This boy is a good leader." So they kidnap him. Yeah, they kidnap him. So Rikki Tikki Tavi I think is this snake. I haven't read this yet, but I think it's about this snake because there's a snake on this and it's excerpt from the Jungle Book. Yeah, I think this snake named Rikki Tikki Tavi. Okay, so let's read. This is a story of the great war that Rikki Tikki Tavi fought single-handed through the bathroom of the big bungalow on the Sicily continent. Darcy, the tailor bird, helped him, and Shirley the muscat, who never come out into the middle of the fort, but always creep around by the wall, gave him advice. But Rikki Tikki did the real fight. He was a mongoose, rather like a little cat in his fur and his tail, but quite a little weasel. In his head and his habit, his eyes and the end of the restless nose were pink. He could scratch himself anywhere he pleased with any leg, front or back, that he chose to use. He could flip up his tail till it looked like a bottle brush, and his war cry as he scuttled through the long grass was "Rick tick tick, Rick tick ticky ticky chick." One day, a high summer flood washed him out of the burrow where he lived with his father and mother and carried him, kicking and clucking, down a roadside ditch. He found little whips of grass floating there, and clung to it till he lost his sense. When he revived, he was lying in the hot sun in the middle of a garden path, very draggled indeed, and a small boy was saying, "Here's a dead mongoose. Let's have a funeral." "No," said his mother. "Let's take him and dry him. Perhaps he isn't really dead." They took him into the houses, and a big man picked him up between his finger and thumb, and he said he was not dead, but half choked. So they wrapped him in cotton wool and warmed him, and opened his eyes and sneezed. "Now," said the big man, he was an Englishman who had just moved into the bungalow, "don't frighten him, and we'll see what he will do. It is the hardest thing in the world to frighten a mongoose, because he is eaten up from nose to tail with curiosity. The motto of all the mongoose family is run and find out, and Rikki Tikki was a true mongoose. He looked at the cotton wool, decided that it was not good to eat, ran all around the table, sat up and put his fur in the order, scratched himself, and jumped on the small shoulder. "Don't be frightened, Teddy," said his father. "That's his way of making friend." "Ouch, he's tickling under my chin," said Teddy. Rikki Tikki looked down between their boy's collar and neck, snuffed at his ear, and climbed down to the floor, where he sat rubbing his nose. "Good gracious," said Teddy. "Mother, and that's a wild creature. I suppose he's so tame because you've been kind to him." All mongooses are like that, said her husband. If Teddy doesn't pick up by the tail and try to put him into a cage, he'll run in and out of the house all day long. Let's give him something to eat. They gave him a little piece of raw meat. Rikki Tikki liked it immensely, and when it was finished, he went out into the veranda and sat in the sunshine and fluffed up his fur and make it dry to the roots. Then he felt better. There are more things to find out about in this house, he said to himself, than all my family could find out in all their life. I shall certainly stay and find out. He spent all that day roaming over the house. He nearly drowned himself in the bathtub, put his nose into the ink of the drawing table, and burned it on the end of the big man's cigar, for he climbed up into the big man's lap to see how writing was done. At nightfall, he ran into Teddy's nursery to watch how Karen's lamp were lighted, and when Teddy went to bed, Rikki Tikki climbed up too. He was a restless companion because he had to get up and attend to every noise all through the night and find out what made it. Teddy's mother and father came in the last thing to look at their boy, and Rikki Tikki was awake on their pillow. I don't like that, said Teddy's mother. He may bite the child. He'll do no such thing, said the father. Teddy's safer with a little beast than if he had a bloodhound to watch him. If a snake came into the nursery now, but Teddy's mother wouldn't think of anything so awful. Early in the morning, Rikki Tikki came to early breakfast in the veranda, riding on Teddy's shoulder, and they gave him a banana and some boiled egg, and he sat on their lap one after the other, because every well-brought-up mongoose always hoped to be a house mongoose someday and have room to run about it. And Rikki Tikki's mother, she used to live in the Genderal's house at the Seagully, and carefully told Rikki what if he came across Englishmen. Then Rikki Tikki went out in the garden to see what was to be seen. It was a large garden, only half cultivated, with bushes as big as summer house of roses, lime and orange tree, clump of bamboos, and thicket of high grasses. Rikki Tikki licked his lips. This is a splendid hunting ground, he said, and his tail grew bottle brushy at the thought of it. And he scuttled up and down the garden, snuffling here and there till he heard a very sorrowful voice in the thornbush. It was Darcy, the tailor bird, and his wife. They had made a beautiful nest by pulling two big leaves together and stitching them up the edge of the fibre, and had filled the hollow with cotton and downy fluff. The nest swayed to and fro as they sat at the rim and cried. What's the matter? Asked Rikki Tikki. We are very miserable, said Darcy. One of our babies fell out of the nest yesterday, and Nag ate him. Said Rikki Tikki. That is very sad, but I am a stranger here. Who is Nag? Darcy and his wife only cowered down in the nest without answering, for the thick grass at the foot of the bush. There came a low hiss, a horrid cold sound that made Rikki Tikki jump back 2 clear. Then inch by inch and out of grass rose up the head and spread hood of Nag, the big black cobra, and he was 5 feet long from tongue to tail. When he had lifted 1/3 of himself clear of the ground, he stayed balancing to the fro, and exactly as a dandelion tough balance in the wind, and he looked at Rikki Tikki with the wicked snake eyes that never changed expression. Whatever the snake why be thinking of? Who is Nag? Said he. I am Nag. The great god Brahma put his mark upon all our people when the first cobra spread his hood to keep the son of the Brahma as she slept. Look and be afraid. He spread out his hood more than ever, and Rikki Tikki saw the spectacle mark on the back of it, and that looked exactly like the eyes part of the hook, and eyes fascinating. He was afraid for the minute. But it is impossible for a mongoose to stay frightened for any length of time, and though Rikki Tikki had never met a live cobra before, his mother had fed him on dead one, and he knew that all grown mongoose business in his life was to fight and eat snake. Nag knew that too, and at the bottom of his cold heart he was very afraid. "Well," said Rikki Tikki, and his tail began to fluff up again. "Mark or no mark, do you think it is right for you to eat fledgling out of a nest?" Nag was thinking to himself and watching the least little movement in the grass behind Rikki Tikki. He knew that mongoose in the garden meant death sooner or later for him and his family, but he wanted to get Rikki Tikki off his guard, so he dropped his head a little and put it in one side. "Let us talk," he said. "You eat eggs? Why should you eat? Why should why should not I eat birds?" "Behind you! Look behind you!" sang Darzee. Rikki Tikki knew better than to waste time in staring. He jumped up in the air as high as he could go, and just under him whizzed by the head of Nagani. Nag, wicked up his wife. She had crept up behind him as he was talking to make an end of him, and he heard her savage hiss as the stroke missed. He came down almost across her back, and if he had been an old mongoose, he would have known that then was time to break her back with one bite. But he was afraid of the terrible lashing return stroke of the cobra. He bit indeed, but did not bite long enough, and he jumped clear of a whisking tail, leaving Nagana torn and angry. "Wicked, wicked Darzee," said Nag, lashing up as high as could reach through the nest and the thorn bush. But Darzee had built it out of the reach of snake and only swayed to and fro. Rikki Tikki felt his eyes growing red and hot. When a monkey's eyes grow red, he is angry, and he sat back on his tail and hind is like a little kangaroo, and looked all around him and chattered with rage. But Nagani had disappeared into the grass. When a snake misses, it's a stroke. It never say anything or give any sign of what it is mean to next. Rikki Tikki did not care to follow them, for he did not feel sure that he could manage 2 snakes at once. So he trotted off to the gravel path near the house and sat down to think. It was a serious matter for him. If you read the old book of natural history, you'll find that they say that when the mongoose fights a snake and happened to get bitten, he run up and eat some herb that cured him. That is not true. The victory is only a matter of quickness of eyes and quickness of foot. Snake blow against the mongoose jump, and as no eyes can follow the motion of the snake head when it strike, that make things much more wonderful than any magic herb. Rikki Tikki knew he was a young mongoose, and he made him all the more pleased to think that he had managed to escape a blow from behind. It gave him confidence in himself, and when Teddy came running down the path, Rikki Tikki was ready to be petted. But just as Teddy was stopping, something flinched a little in the dust and said a tiny voice said, "Be careful, I am Death." It was Carrot, the dusty brown snackling that lies for the choice on dusty earth, and his bite is as dangerous as the cobra. But he is so small that nobody think of him, and so he does the more harm to people. Rikki Tikki's eyes grew red again, and he danced up to Courage with a peculiar rocking, swaying motion that he had inherited from his family. It looked very funny, but it is perfectly balanced a gait that you can fly off from it at any angle you please. In the dealing with a snake, this is an advantage. If Rikki Tikki had only known, he was doing a much more dangerous thing than fighting. Nag, for Courage, so small and can turn so quickly that unless Rikki bit himself close to the back of the head, he would get the return stroke in his eyes or lips. But Rikki did not know. His eyes were all red, and he rocked back and forth looking for a good place to hold. Cartwright struck out. Rikki jumped sideways and tried to run in, but the wicked little dusty gray head lashed the fraction of his shoulder, and he had to jump over the body and the head follow his heel close. Teddy shouted to the house, "Oh, look here! Our mongoose is killing a snake!" said Rikki Tikki, heard a scream from Teddy's mother. His father ran out with a stick, but by the time he came up, Courage had lunged out too far, and Rikki Tikki had sprung jump on the snake's back, dropped his head far between his foreleg, been as high up in the back as he could he could get hold and rolled away. That bite paralyzed Calgary, and Rikki Tikki was just going to eat him up from the tail after the custom of his family at dinner when he remembered that a full meal made a slow mongoose, and if he wanted all his strength and quickness ready, he must keep himself thin. He went away for the dust bath under the castor oil bushes while Teddy father beat the dead curate. What is the use of that? Thought Rikki Tikki. I've settled it all. And then Teddy mother picked him up from the dust and hugged him, crying that he had saved Teddy from death. And Teddy father said that he was a providence. And Teddy looked on with the big scared eyes. Rikki Tikki was rather amused of all the fuss, which of course he did not understand. And Teddy mother might as well have petted Teddy for playing in the dust. Rikki was thoroughly enjoying himself. That night, at dinner, walking to and fro among the wine glasses on the table, he could have stuffed himself 3 times over with nice thing, but he remembered Nag and Nagin, and though it was very pleasant to be patted and petted by Teddy mother and to sit on Teddy's shoulder, his eyes would get red from time to time, and he would go off into his long war cry of Rick tick ticky ticky. Teddy carried him off to bed, and insist on Rikki Tikki sleeping under his chin. Rikki Tikki was too well bred to bite on or scratch, but as soon as Teddy was asleep, he went off for his nightly walk around the house, and in the dark he ran up against Chuchundra, the muskrat, creeping round by the wall. Chuchundra is a broken-hearted little beast. He whimpered and cheeped all the night, and trying to make his mind to run into the middle of the room, but he never get there. Don't kill me, said Chuchundra, almost weeping. Rikki Tikki, don't kill me. Do you think a snake killer kill muskrat? Said Rikki Tikki scornfully. Those who kill snake get killed by snake, said Chuchundra, more sorrowfully than ever. And how am I sure that Nag won't mistake me for you some dark night? They're not the least danger, said Rikki Tikki, but Nag is in the garden, and I know you don't go there. My cousin Chua, the rat, told me, said Chuchundra, and then he stopped. Told you what? Hush! Nag is everywhere, Rikki Tikki. You should have talked to Chua in the garden. I didn't, so you must tell or I'll bite you. Chuchundra sat down and cried till the tear rolled off his whisker. I'm very poor, man, he sobbed. I never had spirit enough to run in and out of the middle of the room. Hush, I mustn't tell you anything. Can't you hear Rikki Tikki? Rikki Tikki listened. The house was as still, but he thought he could just catch the frightened scratch in the world, a noise as faint as the webs of walking on a window pane. The dry scratch of a snake's scale and brickwork. That is Nag or Nagina, he said to himself, and he is crawling in the bathroom stones. You're right, Chuchundra. I should have talked to Chua. He stole off Teddy bathroom, and there was nothing there. And then to Teddy mother bathroom. At the bottom of the smooth plaster wall, there was a brick pull out to make a sluice of the bath water. And as Rikki Tikki stole the masonry curb where the path is put, he heard Nag and Nagana whispering together outside the moonlight. When the house is emptied of the people, said Nagina to her husband, he will have to go away, and then the garden will be our own again. Go in quietly and remember that the big man who killed Carrot is the first one to bite, and then come out and tell me, and we will hunt for Rikki Tikki together. But are you sure that there's anything to be gained by killing the people? Said Nag. Everything. When there were no people in the bungalow, did we have any mongoose in the garden? So long as the bungalow is empty. We are king and queen of the garden, and I remember that as soon as our egg and melon bed hatch, as they may tomorrow, our children will need room and quiet. I had not thought of that, said Nag. I will go, but there's no need that we should hunt for Rikki Tikki afterward. I will kill the big man and his wife, and the child if I can, and come away quietly. Then the bungalow will be empty, and Rikki Tikki will go. Rikki Tikki tingled all over with rage and heart at this, though the nag had come through the sluice, and his 5 feet of cold body followed it. Angry as he was, Rikki Tikki was very frightened as he saw the size of the big cobra. Nag coiled himself up, raised his head, and looked in the bathroom in the dark, and Rikki could see his eyes glitter. Now if I kill him here, Nagina will know, and if I fight him on the open floor, the odds are in his favor. What am I to do? Said Rikki Tikki Tavi. Nag waved to and fro, and then Rikki Tikki heard him drinking from the biggest water jar that was used to fill the bath. That is good, said the snake. Now, when the curry was killed, the big man had a stick. You may have that stick still, but when he come in bath in the morning, he will not have a stick. I shall wait here till he come. Nagina, do you hear me? I shall wait here in the cold till daytime. There was no answer from outside, so Rikki Tikki knew Nagina had gone away. Nag coiled himself down, coil by coil, around the ledge at the bottom of the water jar, and Rikki Tikki stayed still as death. After an hour, he began to move, muscle by muscle, toward the jar. Nag was asleep, and Rikki Tikki looked at his big back, wondering which would be the best place for a good hold. If I don't break his back at the first jump, said Rikki, he can still fight. And if he fight, oh, Rikki, he looked at the thickness of the neck below the hood. But that was too much for him, and a bite near the tail would only make Nag savage. It must be the head, he said at last, the head above the hood, and when I am once, there must not let go. When he jumped, the head was lying a little clear of the water jar, under the curved bit, and his teeth met. Rikki braced his back against the bulge of the red earthenware, told him down the head. It gave him just 1 second purchase, and he made the most of it. Then he was battered to and fro, as a rat is shaken by a dog, to and fro on the floor, up and down in round and great circles. But his eyes are red, and he held on as the body canted over the floor, upsetting the tin dipper and the soap dish, and the flesh brush, and bang against the tin side of the bath. As he held, he closed his jaw tight and tighter, for he made sure he would be banged to death, and for the horror of his family, he preferred to be found with his teeth locked. He was dizzy, aching, and felt shaken to the piece of when something off like a thunderclap just behind him. A hot wind knocked him senseless, and the red fire signed his fur. The big man had been wakened by the noise and had fired both muzzle of the shotgun into Nag just behind the hood. Rikki Tikki held on with his eyes shut, for now he was quite sure he was dead, but the head did not move, and the big man picked him up and said, "It's the mongoose again, Alice. The little chap has saved her life now." Then Teddy Mother came in with a very white face and saw that was the left of Nag, and Rikki Tikki dragged himself to Teddy's bedroom and spent half the rest of the night shaking himself tenderly to find out whether he was really broken into 40 pieces as he had fancied. When the morning came, he was very stiff, but well pleased with this doing. Now I have Nagina to settle with, and she was worse than 5 Nag, and there's no knowing when the egg she spoke of will hatch. Goodness, I must go and see Darcy, he said. Without waiting for breakfast, Rikki Tikki ran to the thorn bush where Darcy was singing along with triumph at the top of his voice. The news of Nag's death was all over the garden, for the sweeper had thrown the body on the rubbish heap. "Oh, you stupid tuft of feather," said Rikki Tikki angrily. "Is this the time to sing? Nag is dead. Is dead. Is dead," sang Darcy. The valiant Rikki Tikki caught him by the head and held fast. The big man bought a bang stick, and Nag fell into pieces. "You'll never eat my babies again." "Oh, that's true enough, but where's Nagina?" said Rikki Tikki, looking carefully around. "Nagina came to the bathroom, girls, and called for Nag," Darcy went on, "and Nag came out on the end of the stick. The sweepers picked him up on the end of the stick and threw him upon the rubbish heap. Let us sing about the red-eyed Rikki Tikki." And Darcy fell out his throat and sang, "If I could get up to your nest, I'll roll all your babies around," said Rikki Tikki. "You don't know when to the right thing at the right time. You're safe enough in your nest there, but it's war for me down here. Stop singing a minute, Darcy. For the beautiful Rikki Tikki's sake, we'll stop," said Darcy. "What is it?" "Oh, killer for a terrible Nag. Where's Nagina?" "For the 3rd time. On the rubbish heap by the stable, mourning for Nag." great is Rikki Tikki when the white teeth bother my white teeth. Have you ever heard where she keep her egg? In the melon bed on the end of nearest of wall, where the sun strike nearly all day. She hid them there weeks ago. And you never thought it worthwhile to tell me. The end nearest the wall, you said. Rikki Tikki, you're not going to eat her egg. Not eat exactly. No, Darcy. If you have a grain of sense, you will fly off the table and pretend that your wing is broken and let Nagina chase you away to this bush. I must get to the melon bed, and if I went there that now, she would see me. Darcy was a feather-brained little fellow who could never hold more than one idea at a time in his head, and just because he knew that Nagina children were born in an egg like his own, but he didn't think at first that it was fair to kill them. But his wife was a sensible bird, she knew the cobra egg meant young cobra later on, so she flew off from the nest and left Darcy to keep the babies warm and continued his song about the death of Nag. Darcy was very little like a man in some way. She fluttered in front of the Nagina by the rubbish heap and cried, "Oh, my wing is broken! The boy in the house threw a stone at me and broke it." And then she fluttered more desperately than ever. Nagina lifted her head and hissed, "You weren't Rikki Tikki when I would have killed him. Indeed and truly, you chosen bad place to be lame in." And she moved toward Darcy, wife slipping along over the dust. "The boy broke it with a stone," shrieked Darcy, wife. "Well, it may be some consolation to you when you're dead to know, and I shall settle account with the boy. My husband lay on the rubbish heap this morning, but before the night the boy in the house will lie very still. What is the use of running away? I'm sure to catch you, little fool. Look at me." Darcy's wife knew better than to do that, for a bird who looked at a snake's eyes gets so frightened that she cannot move. Darcy's wife fluttered on, peeping sorrowfully and never leaving the ground, and Nagina quickened her pace. Rikki Tikki heard them going up the path from the stable, and he raced for the end of the melon patch near the wall. There in the worm, little from the melon, very cunningly hidden, he found 25 eggs, a night about the size of battened eggs, but with his skin instead of shell. "I was not a day too soon," he said, for he could see the baby cobra crawl up inside the skin, and he knew that the minute they were hatched, they could each kill a man or a mongoose. He put up the top of the egg as fast as he could, taking care to crush the young cobra, and turn over the litter from time to time to see whether he had missed any. At last there were only 3 eggs left, and Rikki Tikki began to chuckle himself when he had heard Darcy's wife scream, "Rikki Tikki, I led Nagin toward the house, and she's gone in the Vendra, and oh, come quickly, she mean killing." Rikki Tikki smashed 2 eggs and tumbled back toward down, and the melon bag with a third egg in his mouth, and scuttled the Vendra as hard as he could put to the ground. Teddy and his mother and father were there at early breakfast, but Rikki Tikki saw that they were not eating anything, and their faces were white. Nagina was coiled up on the matting of Teddy's chair, within easy striking distance of Teddy's bare leg, and she was swinging and throwing, singing a song of triumph. "Son of the big man and killed Nag," she hissed. "Stay still, I am not ready yet. Wait a little, keep very still, you 3. If you move, I strike, and if you do not move, I strike. Oh, foolish people, who killed my Nag?" Teddy's eyes were fixed on his father, and all his father could do was whisper, "Sit still, Teddy. You mustn't move. Teddy, keep still." Then Rikki Tikki came up and cried, "Turn round, Nagina. Turn and fight." "All in good time," said she without moving her eyes. "I'll settle my account with you presently. Look at your friend, Rikki Tikki. They're all still in white. They are afraid. They dare not move, and if you come step near, I strike." "Look at your egg," said Rikki Tikki, "in the melon bed near the wall." "Go and look, Nagina." The big snake turned half around and saw the egg on the veranda. "Ah, give it to me," she said. Rikki Tikki put his paw on one each of the egg, and his eyes were blood red. "What price for a snake egg? For young cobra? For young king cobra? For the very last of the brood. The ants are eating all the other down by the melon bed." Nagina spun clear round, forgetting everything for the sake of one egg, and Rikki Tikki saw Teddy's father shoot out a big hand, catch Teddy by the shoulder, and drag him across the little table with a teacup, safe and out of the reach of Nagina. "Trick, trick, trick, Rikki Tikki, tick," chuckled Rikki Tikki. "The boy is safe, and It was I that caught Nag by the hood last night in the bathroom. Then he began to jump up and down, all 4 feet together, his head close to the floor. He threw me to and fro, but he could not shake me off. He was dead before the big man blew him in two. I did it. Rikki, Tikki, tick, tick. Come on then, Nagina, come and fight with me. You shall not be a widow long. Nagina saw that she had lost her chance of killing Teddy, and the egg lay between Rikki, Tikki paw. Give me the egg, Rikki Tikki. Give me the last of my egg, and I will go away and never come back, she said, lowering her hood. Yes, you will come back, and you'll never come back, for you will go with the rubbish heap of Nag. Fight, widow. The big man has gone for his gun. Fight! Rikki Tikki was bounding all around Nagina, keeping just out of reach of her stroke. His little eyes like hot coals. Nagina gathered himself together and flung out at him. Rikki Tikki jumped and backward, again and again. And again she struck, and each time her head came with a whack on the mattering of Vendra, and she gathered herself together like a watch spring. Then Rikki Tikki danced in a circle to get behind her, and Nagina spun around her head to his head, so that the rustle of her tail on the matting sounded like a dry leaf blown along the wind. He had forgotten the egg. It still lay on the Vendra, and Nagina came nearer and nearer to it, till at last, while Rikki Tikki was drawing breath, she caught it in her mouth, turned to the Vendra's steep, and flew like an arrow down the path, with Rikki Tikki behind her. Then the cobra ran for her life, and she goes like a whiplash flick across a horse's neck. Rikki Tikki knew that he must catch her, or all the trouble would begin again. He headed straight for the long grass by the thorn bush, and he was running. Rikki Tikki heard Darcy singing his flourish little song for triumph, but Darcy's wife was wiser. She flew over her nest as Nagina came along, and flapped her wing about Nagina's head. If Darcy had helped, they might have turned her, but Nagina only lowered her hood and went on. Still, the instant delay brought Rikki Tikki up to her, and as she plunged into the rath hole where she and Nag used to live, his little white teeth were clenched onto her tail, and he went down with her. And a few monkeys, however wise and old they might be, cared to follow Cobra in its hole. It was dark in the hole, and Rikki Tikki never knew when it might open and give Nagina room to turn and strike it at him. He yelled savagely and struck out his feet to act as a brake on the dark slope of the hot, moist air. Then the grass of the mouth and the hole stopped waving, and Darty said, "It is all over with Rikki Tikki. We must sing his death song. Valiant Rikki Tikki is dead, for Nagina will surely kill him underground." So as he sang very mournful a song that he made up on the spur of the minute, and just as he got the most touching part, the grass quivered again, and Rikki Tikki, covered with dirt, dragged himself out of the hole leg by leg, licking his whisker. Darcy stopped with a little shout. Rikki Tikki shook off some dust off his fur and sneezed. "It is all over," he said. "The widow will never come out again." And the red ants that lived between the grass stem heard him, and began to troop down one after another to see if he had spoken the truth. Rikki Tikki curled himself up in the grass and slept where he slept and slept till it was late in the afternoon, for he had done a hard day's work. "Now," he said when he awoke, "I will go back to the house, tell the coppersmith Darcy, and he will tell the garden that Nagini is dead. The coppersmith is a bird, and he's making a noise exactly like the beating of a little hammer on a copper pot, and the reason he's always making it is because he's torn crier to every Indian garden and tell all the news to everybody who care to listen." As Rikki Tikki went up the path, he heard his attention note like a tiny dinner gong, and then the steady ding dong talk. "Nag is dead, dong. Nagini is dead, ding dong talk." That set all the bird in the garden singing, and the frog croaking, for Nag and Nagina used to eat frog as well as little bird. When Rikki got to the house, Teddy and Teddy's mother, she still looked very white, for she'd been fainting, and Teddy's father came out, almost cried over him, and that night he ate all that was given him, till he could eat no more, and went to bed on Teddy's shoulder. Where Teddy's mother saw him that she came a look late at night. "He saved our life and Teddy's life," she said to her husband. "Just think, he saved all of our life." Rikki Tikki woke up with a jump, for all monkeys are light sleeper. "Oh, it's you," said he. "What are you bothering for? And all the cobras are dead. And if They weren't. I'm here. Rikki Tikki had right and proud of himself, and he did not grow too proud, and he kept that garden as a mongoose should keep it, with tooth and jump and spring and bite, till never cobra dare show its head inside the wall.